tuned into Your Trades with me, Ankita Saxena, and with me is Priyanka Uppal. Priyanka, what a day of trade, yet another all-time highs, but we did see range-bound trading coming in on the market today. We did see, Sensex hit all-time high. It touched almost 80,000 levels and, intraday for the first time ever. We also saw Nifty hit all-time high and then, advance 0.7%, trading above those 24,300 levels. But we did close down a little, east of those gains, by the end of the trade. Small caps also hit all-time high levels, advancing 1%. The mid cap, however, traded within, yesterday's range, and it closed 0.8% higher. Now, the banks was where the action was, or the financials that was leading from the forefront. In fact, it was a top sectoral gainer that also hit all-time high. It was led by Bandhan Bank and Federal Bank. There were strong quarterly updates also coming in on Federal Bank, on the back of which it was buzzing away in trade. There, Bandhan Bank trading with gains of 4%, and HDFC was another name that was buzzing in trade, and that was on the back of two brokerage notes by UBS and Jefferies that were maintaining a buy on the counter, and also the quarter one updates that came in for HDFC Bank. Also, Nifty Metal advanced over 1%, and it was led by Welspun, Sale. Nifty Pharma also hit an all-time high, and it wasn't for the fourth consecutive session, led by Glenmark and Aurobindo Pharma. Nifty FMCG, of course, traded in yesterday's range, and it was, led by Tata Consumers as the top gainers. Nifty IT, however, was under pressure, trading under pressure today. In fact, we did see a marginal uptick coming in the last minute, but it was nonetheless under pressure. Nifty IT and Nifty Media as well was trading under pressure. So largely this is where the sectors were at, but a couple of names that were also in focus today. It was KC International on the back of the new order win, Purvankara, RVNL again on the back of an order win, Federal Bank, like I mentioned, Motilal Oswal, Gujarat Gas. All of these names were in focus today on the back of news flow. So that's
Ankita, you rightly said about the banks, but the biggest story was HDFC Bank today. It's on the back of this Nifty heavyweight. We saw Bank Nifty crossing 53,000 mark. That's the all-time high for Bank Nifty. And not just HDFC Bank. In fact, the entire momentum for the banking stock was lifted just because of FI holding. Now there's a room for FI holding which can be increased, and huge money, $3 to $4 billion of funds inflow, which is expected at the MSI reject by the end of the August. This is what lifted the entire banking index, and of course coupled with the quarter one updates. Now the entire needle has shifted towards what kind of earnings should we expect, because the kind of updates, though there is a mixed kind of quarterly updates which is coming from the bank so far, but on the back of that, Bandhan Bank kind of stocks, and in fact Federal Bank, it was a credit book, it grew by 25%. CSB was a mixed stock. But then the second sector, which is, of course, which requires a little more mention, is the metal space. The kind of quarter one updates, the highest record, the record level of production, which we could see on MOIL, 7.5% of gains on MOIL. Registers a record quarterly sales and production since inception. Hindustan Zinc, the highest ever first quarterly mined metal and refined metal production. All this is taken together. NLC, coal production, here also a significant mark. This is what is now lifting, or in fact creating a good base for the quarterly, for the earnings, which is to kickstart with the IP back with the metal, and in fact the complete PSU space was buzzing in today. Couple of other names, power financiers on the Bernstein note, because investors, what clearly mentioned in the note was that investors are underestimating the duration and intensity of the power cycle. PFC, REC, outperformers of the day. Target price have been increased, more than 600 for PFC, and REC 653 now. Small cap also did hit, small cap 100 hit a record high today on the back of stocks like Castrol, Hutco, Cochin Shipyard, and another stock, because this week also we're going to see 3 new IPOs, and the one which opens, Mcure, which has a lot of interest from investors. The kind of names which are appearing in anchor investors, and in fact Abu Dhabi, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, and a couple of the domestic mutual funds also looks very attractive. That's all. These are the couple of the big spaces and the stocks which were buzzing in today. But now, how to trade on the index now? Ruchit Jain joins in from 5 Paisa. Ruchit, welcome to Your Trades. We wanted to first understand, because the kind of kickstart we did to July series, that itself formed a huge base, a case for leg up on Nifty. Bank Nifty was clearly a surprise, and that of course was fueled more by HDFC Bank. Now what next? Would you hold on to your long position? You'll trail stop loss and hold on to your long position, or you would be cautious little and would advise a little profit booking?
Yeah, hi, very good afternoon, Priyanka. Well, Priyanka, there are no signs of reversals as of now, and you rightly mentioned that since the start of the series itself, there are signs that we may see a continuation of the uptrend. Primarily, if you look at the data, then recently FIs have formed decent long positions in the index futures. Before the expiry itself, in last couple of weeks, they have formed long, and they roll over these long positions to this July series. Now, their long short ratio is around 82%, means 82% of the positions are on the long side. But on the other end, if you look at the clients' data, which includes retail traders and HNIs, they are more on the short side with long short ratio only at 34%, means almost 66% of their positions are on the short side. So what is happening that the market is moving higher in favor of FIS positions where they have majority of the positions on the long side. And since these longs, much of these longs were created before expiry and rolled over, I think they are in the money and they have quite comfortable positions. So they may not be in a hurry to book profits or cover up those positions and continue to ride this trend. But the client section, which are more on the short side, they can look to cover their positions because the markets are going against their positions. So I think if any such short covering comes, then that could add fuel to the rally. And even if you look at last few trading sessions, it's not that the few stocks are taking the markets higher, but in the large cap stocks, there have been a very good rotations. Earlier, the private sector banks, followed by buying momentum in the IT heavyweights, and even Reliance Industries have recently given a consolidation breakout. Again, today the banking space took the leadership. So I think it's the entire heavyweights basket which is witnessing buying momentum, and even the broader markets are doing well. The mid cap, small caps are also doing well. So I think it's better to trade in the direction of the trend and rather taking any kind of contra trades over here. As per the retracements of previous corrections, 24,600 is where the index could head in the near term. So we are expecting this uptrend to continue, and I think 24,600 is what one should expect in Nifty in the short term.
24,600 is what we are penciling in on the benchmark. But Ruchit, tell us in this raging bull market, if you will, what are your picks? What is fascinating you in this market?
So a couple of buy recommendations from my side, where the risk reward ratio seems to be favorable. One is I would recommend going long on Power Grid. A good amount of consolidation has been seen. Last 3 or 4 months, the stock is sideways, not rallied much, not corrected. The entire consolidation has been above its moving average supports, which just seems to be a time-wise correction within an uptrend. So I think the stock could resume its uptrend from here on. So one can go long in Power Grid with stock below 325 for potential targets around 352. And Tata Consumer is another stock which is looking quite positive. The stock has already went through a corrective phase in last 1.5 months. After that correction, around from the support level of around 1100, 1080, the stock has managed to show a decent bounce back today. And if you look at volume since morning itself, the volumes are quite good. Better than average volume. Stock is rebounded from its support. So I think this is one stock which could see some good momentum in the near term. One can go long with stop loss below 1090, expecting target somewhere around 1220.
Ruchit, thanks very much. So Ruchit is in no mood to book the profits. He's in fact advising to hold the longs, trail the stop loss, and ride this bull rally. Thanks very much. We'll let you go on this. Well, we have Srishti now who would highlight us the breakout stocks. Srishti, do you have banks today? Because banks were clearly the flavor of the day.
Well, certainly, Priyanka, banks were clearly the flavor of the today. And yes, indeed, one of the breakout candidates that we wish to highlight is from the banking space. And have a look at RBL Bank, because this stock has been consolidating for quite some time now. But today was a strong day for RBL Bank, the day where the stock actually started. It ended at the day's highest point, and that's a strong green candle that you will see. Interesting to note that this was a bullish engulfing candle that the stock actually made on the charts. A bounce exactly from its 20-day moving average, and finally trying and attempting to cross above its key resistance of 270 odd rupees. But onto the bullish engulfing, we did spot that it was indeed a breakout stock. Moving on to the next counter then, and the next stock that we have is FDC. We don't discuss this stock very often, but the point being that the pharma index today was sitting at its life high levels. Apart from that, FDC was one such counter which was also consolidating, and every time it faced a rejection around it 480 odd levels. But for today, it did manage to move above those levels. It was a strong day coming in for FDC, taking support at its 20-day moving average, and that's what we wish to highlight on the second breakout stock. So these are the two stocks on the breakout side. Back to you.
All right, Rishi, thank you so much for joining us with that. But the quarterly updates have already started trickling in, and we're just little short of the earnings season commencing. But what does Aman Chauhan of Abacus Asset Manager LLP feels about this earnings season? What are his expectations? Let's go across and take a look at that.
Our research team has been telling us that cement this quarter is not going to be great. Even the consumer discretionary sector is not going to be great this quarter because of the elections. While earlier we felt because of elections there could be demand pickup, but it looks like that doesn't happen. Retail segment, textile segment is also going to be soft this quarter is what our understanding is. IT is going to be neutral. What the companies have guided, I believe they'll be able to achieve the guidance. Pharma could surprise on the positive. Pharma and chemical, as I mentioned, these are the two segments where we are seeing incrementally positive upgrades coming in.
All right, that was Mr. Aman Chauhan from Abacus. But then we stay for a short break here. More to come on the other side. We get to industry reaction from the sugar space. And in fact, we get to the quarterly updates and the big stories and other stocks which are buzzing in trade.
Welcome back. You're tuned into Your Trades, and well, let's place a spotlight on HDFC Bank and Federal Bank, both of the banking names that came out there with their quarterly updates and were in focus today. But let's go across to my colleague Gaurav, who's joining in for more details on those banks.
Well, yes, HDFC Bank is definitely in focus, and the reason being that company has come up with a shareholding pattern where we saw FII holding has come down to 54.83%. Now, why this is important is that MSCI, as per MSCI, HDFC Bank holds around 3.8% weights in MSCI India Index, and as per MSCI's rules, for rebalancing for any of the stock, the MSCI, the FII holding has to be below 55.5%. Now, there was a case for the same thing for HDFC Bank in the month of May also, where we saw this target was missed almost by 5 basis point only. But given that the shareholding pattern has come down to 54.83%, now there is a strong case that we may see some rebalancing happening in HDFC Bank, and the weights for HDFC Bank could double from here on. And if we look at brokerages also, they believe that the weights can actually bring in around 3 to 4.5 billion worth of passive inflow in HDFC Bank share price. Even if you look at the share price and even if you look at the valuation, HDFC Bank currently trades below 5-year average, and the two important dates for HDFC Bank from here on would be August 13, where MSCI will come up with the official announcement about the reject, and July 20th, when HDFC Bank will come up with their Q1 updates and Q1 results. Apart from that, Federal Bank is also buzzing, and this is on the back of the Q1 updates that they have given. They have actually come up with a strong updates for Q1 FY25. If we talk about deposits, that has increased almost by 20%. When we look at advances, that has also gone up almost by 20%. And within the advances, if we look at retail loans, that has increased faster than the overall loan book at 25% on a YY basis. When we look at CASA ratio also, that has remained flat on a YY basis and also on a QOQ basis. And on back of this news, we saw the stock is also buzzing. So definitely watching out on both of these counters, because there is a strong news flow coming up in both these counters.
Thanks very much, Gaurav, for highlighting the reason, the updates with the Federal Bank and the HDFC Bank, the FI holding, which was the reason that the stock ran today. Moving on to sugar space, ISMA, the sugar organization, sees a surplus sugar season this year. Renuka Sugar's Atul Chaturvedi doesn't expect the government to lift the ban on exports and also does not see any prices to fall. Let's listen in what he exactly said.
Too sure, because the problem is the government is too worked up as far as the food inflation part is concerned. So sugar is not contributing to food inflation. So what is contributing is vegetables and pulses and all. But somehow or the other, in their wisdom, they have kept sugar exports banned. If they were to allow a couple of million tons of sugar to go out of the system, then possibly India would be much better off. We would not be bearing additional interest burden. As the retail prices are concerned, now with the onset of the festival season hitting in the month of August and thereabout, then there could be a marginal uptick of in sugar prices. but we don't anticipate sugar prices to come off.
Also, on the big brokerage radar, then we had the power financiers on the back of notes that had come out by Bernstein that initiated coverage with outperform rating. Now, the brokerage sees better ROEs and growth than the peers. And these two stocks in focus were PFC and REC on the back of that note. But let's go across to my colleague Ashresha, who's joining in with the highlights.
Well, yes, both these power financiers are gaining anywhere between 3 to 5% in today's trading session on the back of this Bernstein report, where they've initiated coverage with an outperform rating on both these counters. And for REC, they've given a target price of 653 rupees per share, and for PFC at 620 rupees per share. They believe that investors are underestimating the duration and intensity of the current power cycle. They believe it is expected to be much more elongated as compared to previous cycles, and NPAs are expected to be much lower this time around. As far as valuations are concerned, they believe that the stocks are attractively priced. They say they have a better return on equities as compared to other power peers, and they also say that they show stronger correlation to power prices as compared to other banking peers. So very positive report that has come in, where they've initiated coverage with an outperform rating. 620 is the target price for PFC and 653 rupees is the target price for REC. Both these counters up nearly 2 to 6% on the back of this.
All right, thanks very much, Shesha. Power financiers were clearly, these two stocks stood tall today. In fact, the entire power space was buzzing on this note. But then let's move on. Akash Agrawal, whole-time director for V2 Retail, which also released their Q1 update, says they are targeting around 50% top-line growth in FY25 and also expecting the margins to improve going further. Let's listen into what exactly he said.
Look at the overall top line numbers, yes, we are targeting a 50% growth this year because we are planning to open another, I think, 50 stores in the next 12 months. So this trend should continue. But if you talk about SSSG, then of course, when the base becomes higher, we cannot achieve the same kind of SSSG. But even if we achieve a 10% same store sales growth going forward, it gives us a much better EBITDA percentage now.
Well, let's move on to some other stocks that were in news today, buzzing on the back of news flow. But for that, my colleague Gaurav is joining us.
Well, yes, Gujarat Gas is going to be in focus because company has recently increased their gas prices in Morbi region. Now, let's not forget that in Morbi region, industries can easily switch between propane and LNG. And with this price hike now, Gujarat Gas prices are 3.4 rupees per SCM higher than propane. And that is why now analysts believe that the industries may switch to propane. And that is why we saw a negative momentum hitting up this stock. Next, let's talk about MOIL because company registered its record high sales as well as production for the quarter. So production went up to 4.7 lakh tons, which is up almost by 8% on a YY basis, while Q1 sales witnessed a growth of 14.5%, and that is why we saw a positive momentum coming up in this stock. Let's also talk about Puravankara because company recently bought 7-acre land in Bengaluru with gross development value of around 900 crore rupees, and that is why we saw this stock was also in green today. Next, let's talk about KC International because we saw this company won an order worth 1000 crore rupees for supply of towers from Middle East, and this is actually one of the largest solar power order for the company, and that is why we saw a positive momentum coming up in this stock as well. And lastly, let's also watch out for RVNL because company emerged as the lowest bidder for railway order worth 132 crore rupees, and this order is executable in 24 months. So definitely watching out on all these counters in coming days as well.
Of stocks from the metal space, our railway space, which were buzzing in on the back of some news. Thanks very much, Gaurav, for highlighting all the stocks from your list. Let's move on and get you some action from the primary market. Mcure Pharma, which is open for subscription. We did gather some comments from the industry experts. We spoke to Rahul Shah, Associate VP, Group Leader for Equity Advisory Group from Motilal Oswal, and he's bullish on Mcure Pharma. Let's listen in what is his rationale for recommending.
I think a long time we've seen a good IPO coming relating to the market. So a lot of IPOs in the recent time, but I think that is a very prominent name for quite some time. People were anticipating. So I think good IPO, and I think way they have priced it also very reasonably priced, and some money to be made on the table for the investors. And in a pharma pack, when we are seeing that most of the pharma packs doing quite well, and the way the segment which has been into Mcure is into, so I think all the front they have been firing at this point of time. So my sense is I think obviously one should allocate for a subscription and obviously as an investment part of an allocation in their portfolio at this current prices.
All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Your Trades, Priyanka, and I will take your leave. But tomorrow is the weekly Nifty expiry and also the big elections that are going to take place in the UK. And of course, the US markets are going to be shut on a public holiday. But we'll get you all the updates and more. With that, it's a wrap on this edition. Thank you so much for tuning in.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.